Bug's Life. Back in the mid-90s, a little animation studio called Pixar completely revolutionized the animation industry with the first ever computer animated feature, Toy Story. As it was such a huge success both critically and financially, of course they were asked to make another movie in the hopes that lightning can somehow strike twice. But this time, John Lasseter got the idea of the next step to take for their company, which is actually right under their feet. But after several years later, does A Bug's Life hold up as much as Pixar's other legendary hits? Or maybe DreamWorks had the better film all along? Let's find out. The story. This may be the case of the experience more than the journey. In terms of the story itself, it's nothing really that special. This is your typical underdog story where the screw-up has to find a way to redeem himself in a big way. It mostly follows the same pattern as these kinds of plots would, making it pretty predictable the whole way through.
No, wait! This was not supposed to happen!
Mayday, we're losing the job.
But where the story itself may not be much of an attention grabber, what happens in the movie definitely is. The crew at Pixar brings up a lot of interesting ideas of what could happen in, well, A Bug's Life. From the working colony of the ants, their version of the city life, the tyranny of the grasshoppers, and more. Also, they did succeed in conveying the emotional aspect, making many of the scenes feel intense, charming, heartwarming, or just plain enjoyable. We know how the story is gonna go down, but we also know that we'll have fun with it anyways. The animation. Even for one of their first films, Pixar sure knows how to bring us to new worlds, which in this case is from the point of view of a bug. The best aspect of the animation is definitely the backgrounds, making the most ordinary small things look larger than life. It successfully captures how birds and rain are considered a threat to ants, and taking stuff like cans and boxes and turn them into buildings.
Wow! City!
As for the bugs themselves, it's really creative and fascinating to watch all the different bugs from how they look to the many different ways they move. The only small exception would be the ants. It's admirable that they were able to make so many at once, but their designs aren't really anything special, and they do look all the same except for a selected few. The only critique I would have with the animation is that since it was made during the infancy of computer animated features, it does show that it hasn't really aged too well, like it's not as defined as its later counterparts like Finding Nemo or WALL-E. But like I said, it's not the movie's fault that it was released in the late 90s. But even with that, for what it is, the animation really succeeds in showing how bugs see the world. The characters. While the movie is enjoyable, most of the fun factor can be found in the characters. In fact, it's pretty surprising how a lot of them have some depth. Princess Ada, for example, may seem like just a love interest to Flick, but she's also trying to learn how to take the place of the Queen, where she discovers that she might not be so different to Flick after all. With the grasshoppers, they really pose as a threat to the ants, especially with their leader Hopper, who really puts the menacing side to them and that dark edge that shows that he is no laughing matter.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back!
Does anybody else want to stay?
And then there are the circus bugs. Honestly, when these guys came in, that's when the movie really kicks up and gets good. They each offer a unique personality along with a development when they arrive to Ant Island and a great performance from their respective voice actors. From the greedy P.T. Flea, to the tough Francis, to the hungry Heimlich, to the eccentric Tuck and Roll, and many, many more. But then there's the main character Flick, who's honestly the least interesting character, since he's just a pretty generic underdog who starts out as this outcast that always screws up. Even with his personality that's more out there, he's still as interesting as a real ant. That and Dot is just Flick's friend that's made more just as the cute character. They may not all be top-notch, but the characters do help make the movie memorable. A Bug's Life may not be Pixar's strongest feature with its predictable plot and an uninteresting main character, but it is still a really enjoyable film for what it is, with an engaging story, nice animation, and memorable characters. I definitely recommend this for any Pixar fan or if you're in the mood for a fun animated flick. But the best way to see it, it's like if you're watching Pixar as a seed, whom by time would eventually grow into the mighty tree with plenty of strong branches to hold on that we know today. Oh, and by the way, don't ask me just yet to compare it to DreamWorks Ants. I'll probably do that when I'll review that film. Hey guys, this is AniMat. Now, I feel like it's finally about time that I would get to review a Pixar movie in these classic reviews, or let alone just an official Disney animated feature. Now, I know, technically, I already reviewed stuff like DuckTales the movie, or The Wild, but they're not really in the official Disney collection, like something that would belong in here, you know what I mean? Like, they're just made by secondary animation studios that were distributed by Disney, is what I'm getting at. Plus the fact that it actually feels great that it's A Bug's Life, since that's actually one of the films that I grew up with. Since it was released in the mid-90s, well no, not mid, late 90s, I remember watching it a lot. I love the characters like Slim, Francis, Heimlich, P.T. Flea, and all those characters. And I remember I collected a lot of the action figures, so in a way, watching A Bug's Life again, it actually feels pretty nostalgic, and it actually feels pretty good. But anyways, now that A Bug's Life is over, it's time that we finally move on to a Patreon request. Yes, believe it or not, a very generous person by the name of the Autistic Pony has pledged the ultimate $75 a month on my Patreon account, which allows him to get so many great rewards, including getting a request I will immediately do for the next classic reviews. So, if you guys would like to be like the Autistic Pony and go out and support my work, then all you have to do is just pledge whatever you want at patreon.com/animat. However, if you guys would still like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and put on the animation hat, then write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. So, with all of that said and done, what did the Autistic Pony request me to do? Well, if I could be honest, this is actually one that I try to avoid most of the time. Not because it's really bad or anything, it's mostly because amongst this certain community, it waged a lot of wars, and I wanted to try to avoid it because, like, it felt like it would probably be a little too much trouble. But since this is actually happening, he requested me to do this. I have no choice but to do his whim. Well, the only thing I could say now is get ready, bronies, because here comes AniMat!